Hello, everyone.
Lots of people flooding in.
Nice to see lots of white letters on black backgrounds. If you feel comfortable, please do put your camera on. It would be great to see you and say hello. No worries if you can't. Hello, hi Claire. Nice to see you. Anyone else going to take the plunge?
Caitlin.
Hello, Caitlin. We can see your forehead.
Maybe that's why Caitlin didn't want to put her camera.
Hello, yeah, we got
There
there we go. Hello, hello. All right. Well, you others may put their cameras on over the course of the evening, and in particular, if you do want to ask any questions or offer any comment at any point, do please put your camera on. Very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you for making the time to attend this virtual open evening. My name is Neil Chassor. I'm head of school here at the London School of Architecture, and I am sitting next to Sam.
Samantha Hardingham, the academic director at the LSA.
And we have various colleagues and students who are also with us, and they are going to introduce themselves at the beginning of their various slots. But I'm going to kick off and just talk a little bit about the kind of ethos and vision driving the mission of the school. I hope that we're going to see lots of applications from everyone on this Zoom call by Sunday evening. So just a reminder that that critical deadline of the 15th of January for early bird applications to the Part 2 to start next September. If for whatever reason you can't make that deadline, don't worry. We have another 4 rounds of applications, and all the dates and deadlines will be advertised later on in this presentation. What we really want to do is hand over to our students, because we feel that they can tell you much better than we can what it feels like to study at the LSA. So I'm going to try and be as quick as I can, and Sam is going to kick me under the table if I start droning on, as I am wont to do. So, vision. Our founding vision is that people living in cities experience more fulfilled and more sustainable lives, and our school educates future leaders to design innovations that contribute to this change. And I think I just wanted to emphasize that that vision endures. We feel that climate emergency, the tragedy of the fire at Grenfell, ever stronger demands for social justice, society and community need responsive forms of built environment practice. A new generation, you, who will design, develop and build more equitable and more ecologically flourishing environments. And we think that to fulfill that vision, we must act with increasing urgency. And so we are really looking for you as collaborators in our project to help us fulfill that vision. And that vision really drives everything that we do. It drives the program that we've designed to teach you at Part 2, but it drives other elements of what the school is about. And I will talk a little more about those in a moment. Our mission really comes under 5 core pillars, the first of which is around network. We want to bring together outstanding students, practices, professionals, educators and social entrepreneurs to generate and champion essential new approaches to the design of the urban built environment. That's absolutely fundamental. That's we consider you, our prospective students, our current students, our alumni as fundamental to that network, but also our network of now over 200 practices in London. Everybody from Foster's to RSHP to practices. There's about 5 practices even on our road, on Orsman Road. One man, one woman bands in Hackney and in Islington. You name them, they're part of our network, and that is fundamental to what we do. We are still a relatively new institution. It'll be our 10th birthday this November, and so we're working very hard to continue to establish that institution, to strengthen our offering of physical and virtual amenity, and to remain agile, open and responsive. And then around program. At the core of that is the part 2, but we want to provide career-long learning programs that generate incremental and disruptive innovations in the design of cities and urban environments, and which equip our graduates, hopefully you, for the green economy and a just transition. And we want to be the route of choice for gifted learners to become spatial leaders, recruiting talented candidates from across the whole of society by proactively addressing barriers to the profession and industry. And we want to influence the future of architecture and the city, in particular London, by producing provocative design and research for global dissemination, and by being nimble agents of change within the capital itself. That manifests itself in a whole range of learning programs, in the practice network, in our community and civic presence, and in the knowledge and research that we produce. And then I just wanted to talk a little bit about our ethos. We're all about finding relevance and critical engagement with the challenges that humanity and the planet face. We ask all of our students on their first day of study 3 questions. What change do you want to see in the world? How does your architecture contribute to that change? And who do you want to be as a designer? And we feel that as an institution, as a collective of networks of students, of practitioners, of educators, we really want to demand an architecture that serves humanity and the planet. And I think that there are 3 broad ways in which we can do that at this moment of both crisis, profound crisis, but also opportunity. By promoting the ideal of built environment fellowship, the establishment of equitable exchange amongst everybody involved in the production of the built environment. That's a key lesson really from the tragic fire at Grenfell and the reforms that our wider industry needs to make. We want your investigations through critical practice, through your thesis projects, to embrace that spirit of exchange and collaboration across the built environment. About meaningful municipalism, which means focusing our agency at civic scale and thinking intensely about the city, its governance, how it works, how space and environments are produced within it, and then about decolonizing, decarbonizing, and destandardizing design, embracing alternative ways of thinking about the world and about design, which is what decoloniality is at its core, urgently decarbonizing the wider construction industry, both in terms of embodied and operational carbon, and destandardizing design, a provocation to accept that we are communities made up of ever more diverse bodies, of brains, different ways of experiencing the world and experiencing space. We no longer deal in universals, and we want the work that you do to interrogate these critical themes, to generate ideas really for the future of built environment practice, not just architectural practice, but built environment practice more generally. I'm going to skip over that slide, but really want to emphasize that we feel passionately about uniting academia and practice. And what that means is we are, of course, a learning institution. You will come here to study a degree, a master's in designing architecture, but we are the school for practice. We were built by practice, for practice, with practice. The practice network inflects everything that we do. The people that will teach you and that will guide the research projects that you work on are embedded in practice. And the great advantage, as you all know, of coming to the LSA is that you keep in touch with the realities of contemporary practice through the student placement program and through this incredible exposure to the practice network, about which I was rightly boasting just a few moments ago. We run, alongside the academic program, a practice program of professional events, talks, networking opportunities. We are all about practice. We are industry focused, but we are also, as we were just describing, committed to a broad vision of humanity and the planet. We explore the city as campus. That's also fundamental to who we are and what we do. The city is our campus and our muse. We're based physically at the heart of Hackney, in Hoxton, in East London, between Dalston and Shoreditch. But we get out there. Our practice network extends across the whole of the capital. We're interested in all the mechanisms and levers and development happening around London. And so the city is very much our campus, and I know that students will be talking about that in more detail later. Right, so that's all you're going to hear, I hope, from me. I will be around to pick up any questions later on, but I'm going to hand over now to our students to talk through the program. So guys, if you want to introduce yourselves first of all, and then do just shout when you'd like me to change slide.
I'm Adam, first year student.
I'm Temi, a first year student.
I'm Shrin, a second year student.
And I'm Elliot, a second year student.
Excellent. So who's speaking first?
I think it's me.
Right. Shall I move on?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, great. So yeah, the first module that you go through at the LSA is called Design Cities. It's really interesting one. It's more like an analytical module in which you try and understand how the city has been developed. And then that's like the first part of the module. And then the second part is like a proposition about how the city should be developed. But as you can see from the images, it's kind of done through like drawn sketches. So it's very like quick production, and sort of we studied Hackney as well. So it was a really nice way to get to know the buildings around the campus, around the uni. And yeah, also like trying to develop like a holistic understanding of like how development has occurred through different models, like private, public, and sort of smaller community-led initiatives. Yeah, next slide.
So design direction is the another like principal design module that you undertake in your first year, and it's something that you do at the end of your first year. So Temi and Adam haven't started that yet, but it's essentially where you start thinking about your thesis for the next year, and informing your brief and kind of breaking down the concepts within that. And it's quite an exciting part of the year, because by this point, the end of the year, you'll have done all the other modules that they'll talk through in a minute. And it's a great module to just kind of push yourself and kind of explore as many different avenues as you'd like with the kind of next year in mind. Yeah.
So I'm going to talk a bit about critical practice, which Neil has already touched on as a very kind of integral part of the LSA. So this is a list of our current kind of placement providers, and as you can see, like there are names on here ranging from, as Neil said, the largest and then the smallest practice. So I think one key thing just socially that it kind of helps with throughout the year group is just really, because everybody's working and everybody's talking about their work through other modules as well, it allows you to kind of see all the different practices that people are actually employed in, and kind of all the different interesting projects that they are doing, and kind of just really opens your eyes up onto what is actually happening out in the world of architecture. And it's just obviously a really great way to kind of ground whatever we are learning throughout the course back into reality, which is obviously very, very crucial in architecture. Next slide, please. Next slide. Go back one. I'll talk about critical practice manual and manifesto. So this module is kind of split up into a manual output and a manifesto output. So I'll first talk about the manual. In the manual, you're able to kind of analyze the practice that you are working in through a lens that you choose. And it really just allows you to kind of look critically at the things that the practice is doing, the moves that they're making, the kind of talent that they're employing, or kind of whatever lens it is that you want to kind of look at. and how that is impacting and benefiting the practice. And for a lot of people who are at the LSA, this is a really kind of useful module for them because they are interested in kind of making their own practice. But even if that's not necessarily the route that you want to go down, it's just really nice to be able to take the time to kind of look critically at the practice that you're in. Despite being a part one, like it's obviously very important, like that you are kind of aware of the kind of practice that you're in and the kind of role that they're playing in architecture, I guess I would say. So that's been really kind of beneficial. We're kind of midway through that now. So manifesto is again looking critically, but instead of looking directly at your practice, it's more so looking at the practice of architecture in a critical sense and looking at the kind of the holes that there are, or kind of, you know, the things that, you know, why isn't architecture practice in this way and that way? And in the manifesto, the output is essentially, I mean, it's as broad as poems and kind of comics and whatever, but it is essentially you taking that critical look at the way that architecture is practiced and kind of proposing it to be practiced in a new, better, and more beneficial way, and kind of just inserting yourself in what that change would look like and kind of essentially blowing it out of the water. And again, we're halfway through this, but it is proving really, really interesting so far. Next slide, please.
Yeah, and just to add on to the practice, like critical practice part, you're at uni for like 2 days a week, and then you're working in practice for 3 days a week. So you're kind of in first year, so you're splitting your time like between those worlds, and obviously you've got the resources of your practice to kind of assist and support you in your kind of academic work. It's like a two-way relationship. But yeah, so like the think tank is another module. Yeah, very exciting. We're kind of in the midst of it right now. But it's like a research-led design module. So it's supported by a practice, and they kind of have a specific theme that they're looking at and that they're interested in. And these are kind of real themes that these practices are exploring. And you kind of, as a group of students, would investigate this issue and do some research and then kind of eventually have a design output. So just on the screen, you can kind of see the range of practices from like very small to very large, and the range of topics as well. So obviously these are like very sort of critical ones at the moment. So a lot of retrofit ones, some about like later living and how we're going to care for like an elderly population, the future of kind of manufactured homes. So it's really, really wide range. But it's kind of, it links back to what's been mentioned a few times already of kind of the LSA being this kind of link between practice and academia. So it's kind of that space to research something with practice, and some of them are actually like live projects as well, which is super exciting. Next slide, please. So yeah, one of the cool things about it is that you'll be kind of working in the practices offices. So you're using the city as campus and, you know, going to their offices to present and work through all your work. But it's kind of like manifesting that concept in a real way. Next slide, please. That's last year's group looking very happy with their work.
And much younger and fresher.
Thank you, Neil.
Yeah, next slide, please.
So yeah, these are kind of the three main design modules that you'll do throughout your second year. So we're currently just starting tomorrow design thesis. So your semester one is design spec, and then the next two are in semester two. So design speculation essentially picks up from your design direction, which you do at the end of your first year, and is basically a continuation of that and a real interrogation of that, kind of to the point of an analysis that is often made in studios, that by the end of design speculation, you essentially present your project as a kind of second stage kind of competition entry, or a stage 2+ for people that are in practice, which is an easy way to compare it. And then going in throughout the year, as we're just starting now with thesis, and then synthesis towards the end of the year, is again just like a further typical development of your kind of overall design project and thesis, with synthesis in particular really drawing together a lot of the other modules that you'll do, which Shrin will talk about in your second year. Next slide, please. These are just sorry, so these are just some like examples of the slides before were examples of some roundtable reviews that we very often have in the studio, which will happen kind of throughout each of the terms, and is very much about kind of like putting all of your work on the table, as it sounds, and discussing it with like a wide range of not only your tutor group but tutors that also come in, and a lot of practitioners as well, keeping that kind of connection quite strong again with practice even in your second year, despite the fact that it's not a requirement to work in your second year. And then I think the next slide was just some examples of James, one of our year mates or colleagues, one of his submissions for design speculation that's just gone, and this kind of level of design that's still yet to be really interrogated. Yeah.
So the last two modules are design tectonics and design history, and these run along parallel to your core design modules. So design tectonics is about kind of investigating in how your architectural scheme could be kind of realized. So you'll be in this kind of first initial study that we had to pick a building and choose a small detail that we really liked about it in relation to our design thesis, and kind of model it out. So next slide, please. So here we can see the models that we have produced last term, and it's just a really great way to get stuck into kind of using our hands and produce something really physical, and just kind of work something out in detail to scale, and kind of make an architectural kind of detail to life, rather than just kind of sketching and drawing with it. So this is a few studio shots of us all working really hard. So yeah, just kind of getting back to basics. And then finally, design history. So this is the whole of last term. We're about to submit tomorrow. This is basically kind of exploring historical kind of precedents and themes in relation to our thesis, or it could be a completely different topic in whatever you're interested in. And this picture is an example of kind of weekly walks that Alan, our module leader, takes us on every week to different parts of the city, and we get some really good insights into kind of the architecture in that area, and we can use that in our work. So yeah, that's it really. And for student experience, next slide please. Adam, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so we're based on Osman Road, and you can kind of see some images of the studio there. It's sort of because the week is split, like first years are in practice for a part of the week, there tends to be more first years in on Monday, Tuesday, and the second years tend to be in Wednesday, Friday, but it's not like a rule. It's just kind of the way that it ends up, and obviously near deadlines kind of it gets a bit more populated. But yeah, there's it's quite a small cohort, which is really nice. So there's kind of like a very close-knit kind of feeling, which is something that potentially other schools might not have. It's something that personally I was kind of looking for. Yeah, that's people getting along in studio, doing lots of work. And we're based like next to a lovely canal, which is very, very scenic. Yeah, lots of great stuff nearby as well, like Museum of the Home, and yeah, the kind of pub down the road, which is a frequent post-submission gathering place.
So other than kind of the local area, we all kind of personally, we all have kind of extracurriculars that we all get involved in, and we try to bring them onto the studio kind of campus area. So in the bottom left-hand corner is an exhibition that one of the second years, Fabrice, he kind of helped on this exhibition and he brought it into studio, and it's just kind of great to kind of really share what we've all been kind of working on in our own time and kind of share the architectural knowledge. And it's another way of networking, really. And as well as that, on the left, this is last year's summer show being constructed. So here in LSA, the students kind of take control, and we kind of make a team, and we kind of get the summer show going really early, like we started last term. And we kind of organize it all ourselves. So it's really exciting to kind of put it all together, you know, from the ground up, and really kind of guide the way we want our exhibition to go, to create like a spectacle. So that's something you should really look forward to.
And then outside the studio as well, as Adam said, because we're quite a small cohort, it's really nice, essentially, and very easy to kind of socialize as an entire year and as an entire kind of group of both years. So I think these are some snippets from our Christmas party that we put on a few years ago.
Yeah, I'm feeling very left out, actually. Thanks for
I didn't put it on, Neil. I just attended. Don't worry. But yeah, it's just to back up what everybody said, it's the location and the size of the cohort is really unique to the LSA, and it's a really great overall student experience. The unique one as well, especially.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, guys. So we're just going to end by talking a bit about the formalities, the admissions process. I'm sure it's on a number of your minds as you look forward to the Sunday deadline. Whilst we're going through that, do feel free to put comments and questions in the chat, and we'll come to those towards the end. I very much hope you've got questions for our students, and we will move on to the admissions process.
Very good. It is incumbent upon me to guide you through this process, which I hope by now you will all have had a look at our website. It looks a lot like this when you go to the admissions page and start to sort of lead you into that process. At the top, I draw your attention to both the email address and the WhatsApp number in case you have any questions. We can answer any of those. I know I already recognize one or two faces on the screen who we've spoken to, so that's good news. So really, and this is really as part of the admissions, like tonight, we're doing an online open evening. We will also be doing another face-to-face, as it were, in the studio on the 18th of January. So I draw your attention to that also. An opportunity to really see the building, see where we are, meet some students, meet some tutors, alumni. We try and gather as many of our community as we can in the same place, so that you can get a feel for who we are and what we do, and obviously ask more questions if needed. But yes, put the 18th of January in your diaries if you are able to attend. That would be great. So the key dates, as you know, I think now, and if you don't, here's an introduction to it. We are running essentially 5 cycles of admissions. The early bird first submission deadline of the 15th of January is a key one for us. The sooner, we really do believe the sooner you get your applications in, the better. We can start the processes of investigating practices together. That kind of thing is really useful. So the sooner you get the process going, the better. But there are future deadlines: 12th of February, 12th of March, 16th of April, and 16th of May. Which is cycle 5, not cycle 6, in case anybody spotted the deliberate mistake. We are running a really tight ship here. We are a relatively small community. We are not a big university. We are, and because we are small, we can turn things around pretty quickly on the whole. And we'd like to do that so that you know where you're going as soon as you can. So that first, we try to turn the whole process around really within those 5 weeks. So the first being that Sunday deadline for submission. We then process your applications that following week. We will look at all portfolios, and then within 2 weeks of the submission, we will inform you if you are being called to interview and hold that interview. And then within 2 weeks weeks of that interview, you will be informed of whether you are successful in gaining a place at the school. So that is, by all accounts, a pretty good and speedy process, and we really are geared up to stick to that. So your stage one is really that filling out of that what is a two-stage online application form. Stage one, really putting in details, and then that stage two is that key elements, which are the bit all about you as a designer, your portfolio and your statement of purpose. Your statement of purpose, and I'm just going to flesh out a little bit of what those application details what we'll require from you. Obviously, the personal information, your contact details, name, address, core information, eligibility requirements, note core eligibility requirements and English language skills requirements. So please do check them out. They're all listed and linked on the website. That you have a clear record of appropriate experience. Part one, you have your part one bachelor's degree and experience in practice, a minimum of 12 months prior to taking up your part two place. And then giving us contact details for two referees, an academic referee and a professional referee. So those are the core pieces of information that you really need in that stage one. And then the pieces that really tell us more about you as a designer, the statement of purpose. What we're really asking for is not a personal statement. Many of you are coached in that process in sixth form and in your bachelor's to draw up a personal statement. We're flipping that. We really want to know much more specifically about how you work and the way you work. So we want a thoughtful and creative response that tells us more about what you want to do through your part two study, and some about how you think you work currently. So it's set out a structure for you to with some key questions to help you through that process. But it's really just being very clear that it's really not a personal statement in the sense that you might have previously known it. Hopefully to make it more easy and certainly more design oriented, very much so. And it helps us immensely in getting to know you. Motivation, why us? What are your design ambitions? How do you design? How did you go about your part one thesis? So those are the sorts of questions that come into that statement of purpose. Your practice experience, we want to know about two contributions which are set out very clearly, particularly what you have contributed to those pieces of work in your practice experience, how you got involved, what you were asked to do, what was the project, what were the stages, the stages of work that you've contributed to, and what did you bring to the team, knowing that architecture is always a collaborative and team effort, and that you have brought and added something to that process. So those are all the sorts of quite specific questions that we ask, and would really welcome your response. So thank you for the help. Okay, and then the portfolio. Absolutely, as you would expect, to apply for a master's in designing architecture. We are looking for a design portfolio. We are specific about page numbers so that we don't receive enormous files that nobody can open, and also so that it's really reasonably something that we can have a really good and careful look at, and also discuss over interview if you are indeed invited to interview. So no more than 14 pages, please, and broken down as follows: undergraduate work in 9 pages, work experience 2 to 4 pages, and then some independent projects in 2 pages max. And when we say independent projects, those are the things that you might have done in your own time, under your own motivation initiative. We have all sorts of people applying for the school who've had amazing ranges of experience, some straight out of their part one and then work experience, and some others much further down their career path and deciding it's time to do their part 2. And this is the place to do it. So really, there is always going to be some flexibility in that page arrangement depending on your experience, but at the very least, this is a good guide for the kind of work that we'd like to have a look at. And as I said, it will be the document then you would bring with you if invited to interview. So again, there's a little bit of an indication, the diagram below, design and text. Really make sure that you're very clear about when the project that you're showing was done, what it is, and what your contribution, as I said before, it has been to it. If it's your own work or whether it's a collaborative project or group work, particularly. There are many undergraduate programs now that have group projects. Fantastic. It's a really good way of working. We champion group work and collaborative work at the LSA, but really what we ask our students all the time is, but what are you contributing to that group piece of work? So if it absolutely, by all means, show a drawing that somebody else in the group did, but please say it, declare your interests. It's important to do that. So that really is what constitutes the portfolio piece. And then stage 2 for us will be to review those portfolios that come in, and then we will shortlist for interview. So that's a little bit of work for us to do and contact you, as I said, within what will be within the 2 weeks of submission. This is what your interview, if you are indeed called to interview, will look like. You will be in a room with 2 members of faculty, very likely myself or Neil, chairing that group, a tutor, a current tutor, and a current student. So it gives you an opportunity to ask all those questions that you want to ask, but in the room. And it's a very tightly framed half an hour. Half an hour flies by, so we try and spend 10 minutes on academic work, 10 minutes on your practice experience, and 10 minutes on the design exercise, which is something that we will be asking you to bring with you to the interview. So that's the other element. If you are invited to interview, you will, in that invitation, be asked to undertake a very short, and I repeat, very short, but very concise design exercise of 1 piece of work just to bring for that interview, a new piece, so that we can, it really helps us to see you, the kind of designer you are. It tells a lot outside of the work you might have done in an academic program or in practice. It's really about you. So look out in your interview invitation for that design exercise piece, because we will want to talk about it in the interview. So it's a small group and very much a conversation and an opportunity to really hear from you directly. You talk about the work that you've done, and for us to ask any more questions. Then finally, the step 3, if you're successful in interview, we will promptly issue an offer. You will hear from us within a matter of days, not weeks or months. And at that moment, we will also ask you to pay a small deposit to secure your place. It's really important so that we can start our planning as much as you want to be starting your planning for the year ahead. So I guess little bleep when I'm doing it. Yes. So that's step 3. There will be a small deposit that we will require to secure the place. And then there will be lots of opportunities for you to engage in the current year. So there will be the ongoing sort of process that all students are going through currently. So studio reviews, some of the practice program events or professional program events, and the design charrettes. We run a 1-day design charrette each term for the whole school, which is a sort of day partly for everybody to let loose, partly for the years to come together, because you're all very, very concentrated in your own year groups for a lot of the time during your modules. And so it's a fantastic moment termly to all come together, exchange, but importantly make work together and have design discussions. So you are very welcome on invitation, and certainly sign up process to engage in some of those events, and look forward to meeting you there. Once you've accepted your offer, we will then be in a process of looking towards practice placement and looking to provide you with a place with a practice for your first year here at the LSA. There are 3 routes to that practice placement. You will either, if you are currently in a practice, remain in that practice. You are very, very welcome to do that. If your practice is not in our network, that is a very simple process. We very happily run through a few basic checks. Either they are either an RIBA chartered practice, and if they are not, then we have some other checks that we run, but that's a dialogue between the LSA and your practice. But we are very open to those conversations. If you're in a practice and you enjoy it, our advice is absolutely stay there, enjoy it, develop. There's absolutely no reason to move if you don't want to. Route 2 is that you proceed yourselves and look for practice placements. We can always furnish you with the list of practices that are in our network, but we really do encourage you to actively look for a placement yourself. Obviously, we can guide you through the LSA protocol of that, but really do there's absolutely no restriction on you seeking a practice. And route 3 is that we really do support you in that placement, and we can guide you very carefully. We have students who are coming from parts of the country who may really not have navigated London and London practices at all, and so completely appreciate that you might need a little bit more support in that respect. Our engagement manager, John Nahar, is extraordinarily knowledgeable and amazing, because he knows every single practice by name, as does Neil, and the contacts within them. So we really do, the network is extremely transparent, I should say, but also really accessible. And John is an amazing intermediary and can support some of those conversations. But as I say, once this happens further down the line and really on securing of your offer, but it's just to give you a sense of how that process works. So I think that really brings me to the end of that quite long explanation. All of that information is on the website and illustrated, so hopefully as clear and possibly clearer than my own version. But really, I think now is an opportunity for some questions, if anybody has any, and I think there are quite a few in the chat, possibly.
Yeah, so we'll go through the questions in the chat, but otherwise do just raise your hand if you want to talk to us and show your faces. But we'll just go through some of the chat questions first. So Suki asks, is the course RIBA Part 2 qualified, and what's the size per tutor group? Well, yes, we are a validated program. We were revalidated in December with no conditions, but 2 commendations. So good did the RIBA think our program is. So yes, it is RIBA Part 2 validated. The size per tutor group varies. Sam, did you want to take that one?
Yes, it varies depending on module. For design modules, that's design across both year 1 and year 2. Really, the ratio is 1 to 6 on the whole. Sometimes and on average 1 to 6, but really never more than that. And often it's 1 to 5. In some of the critical practice groups and design history, they're slightly bigger because they tend to be seminar groups. So that can be anywhere between sort of 1 to 15. 17, that sort of ballpark.
I wonder whether our current students present want to just give a sense of what that feels like as you go through the program, and the kind of balance between, as Sam said, group work and then the tutorial groups in second year.
I think that I think it's quite good, to be honest. I think it's a very good ratio that seems to work very well, especially when you're doing a lot of group-based work in your first year, being in that kind of like smaller ratio of 6 to 1, as Sam said, is really helpful, and I think again quite unique to the school. And then that continues into your second year, where you'll be in a larger tutor group, but you'll have more tutors. So you tend to have pairs of tutors. And the kind of reasoning behind that is to kind of give you two opinions behind your design and allow you to kind of shape the design the way you want. So I think that the ratio works really well throughout both years, and it's something that's continued throughout both years, as Sam said.
And critically, we don't run a unit system. So there is I think a really brilliant balance between group work and collaboration, but also independent, autonomously driven research and design practice through the core thesis, but actually through individual design components in first year as well. Another question from unidentified Zoom user. What is the work-study balance like in terms of deadlines? Is there consideration or support during busy work times, and is it easy to navigate? So just before I hand over to students to answer that, I suppose I just wanted to say from my point of view is that work-study balance is really important to us. It is a demanding course. We've been doing a lot of work around program delivery in the first year of study, when you're also undertaking your student placement, to make sure that as long as you turn up on the days that we need you, rested and focused and ready for a full day's work, we will uphold our side of the bargain, which is to keep those exercises contained so that you don't end up spending all your evenings and weekends working on academic work when you're exhausted from your student placement. We can always be better, but I would say to you, I hope it's encouraging to hear from me and indeed from Sam that we do take that really seriously. You know as well as we do that other institutions don't. Sam and I indeed had a meeting just this afternoon with our well-being coach to talk about what more infrastructure we can put in place to support you guys pastorally over the course of the program. Did you want to add anything, or shall I?
No, I mean, I think it's something that, you know, Neil has said is extremely conscious of, particularly in the architectural industry, because of the balance of the program of being practice and academia. We work very, very hard to try to make the best possible timetable that we can to manage those deadlines. And year on year, we improve it with our students' help. We get lots and lots of feedback from students. So it's always going to be refined, but I think that is always our ambition.
Yeah. What does it feel like though for those currently taking it?
I would say one key thing is that whilst you are working, obviously, if your practice is partnered with the LSA, that means that they've kind of read and fully understood and should, to a good degree, support what the LSA are doing, and therefore understand that as well as your kind of work commitments from Wednesday to Friday, you are a student and you have student commitments as well. So obviously I can't speak for everyone, but you know, it is kind of obviously really beneficial to have a practice that is fully understanding of that. And you do also get contact time, a minimum of 30 minutes a week, one-on-one with your practice placement kind of mentor as well. So as well as the kind of academic support that you're getting from all the faculty and your colleagues and everyone else, you are also getting that practice that support from your practice placement, which you can whereby you can, you know, use that time to ask questions about the course, about anything that you kind of feel. That's what I would say, I think.
Thank you. Thanks, Temi. I'm just going to run through some kind of more practical questions that are coming through really quickly. So can I just confirm that only the referee contact details are needed and not written statements from referees? Yes, that's correct. We just need the contact details. We will write to the referees.
Yes, we just need the contact details, and then we will send them a form which they will fill in. So we're not asking you to ask them for letters. Please don't.
Don't do that. We just need their names and accurate contact details, and we will take care of the rest. Mohammed asks, in regard to facilities available at the university, is there a library and workshop available, and where do lectures take place throughout the course? So we do have a library, indeed a growing library of books for you to consult. It's not enormous, but there are some amazing resources for you to use here. You are also, because our degrees are awarded by the University of Liverpool, you have access to the University of Liverpool library. Now, I hear you shout from behind your screens, that's no good when you're in London, but there's an enormous amount of digital resource available through the University of Liverpool library. You are also blessed if you come and study with us to be in London. You have access to the RIBA British Architectural Library. You have access to the British Library, the AA Library. You will have access through Sconnell as part of being enrolled at the University of Liverpool with all other university libraries in London. So you are spoilt for choice in terms of bibliographic resource. We don't have a workshop at present, but we have this incredible network of practice. And those practices are more than happy, in most cases, for you to come in and use that resource. And Samantha and John have gone through an extensive project mapping what is available to you as enrolled students on the LSA program through the Practice Network, number one. Number two, you are given £500 per year of study in workshop budget, and we encourage you to get out there, make those connections with workshops and with studios to deliver the work that meets your intellectual ambitions. And finally, as I think was apparent in the presentation that we saw from the students, there is no compromise to the quality of work in terms of modelling produced by our students. It is as good as any other, if not better than any other of our competitors in the field. Sam, did you want to reinforce that message?
And that final point is to say that in all of those models and some of the examples you saw are all made on the desktops in the studio. So we're really, I suppose, in the spirit of thinking green, that resources are all, and there is an incredible history of model making, which is entirely born out of resource and what can be made more or less on your kitchen table. So I think we promote that ethos not as a compromise, but really as a genuine way of being an agile designer and an agile student. And Neil has described all of the other avenues one can pursue. And
then just the follow-ups from that. So lectures take place here at 6 Orsman Road, but sometimes in practice around the Practice Network. A question about our approach to printing. Printing is necessary during the course. We, like all institutions, are in some regards moving more and more to digital submission. But yes, we have plotters and printers available here, and once again throughout the Practice Network. There's a question around the open day on the 18th. If you can't make that open day, will there be another one? We are not currently planning to hold another in-person open evening. You are more than welcome to come and see us on another occasion that suits you. If you give us some notice, if you drop an email to admissions@the-lsa.org, we will pick that up and find a date that works for you if you cannot make the 18th. If there's huge demand for another open evening, of course we will run another. And then there's a question about, if you don't have any independent work for your portfolio, is that a major issue? No, we just want to give you the opportunity to confidently present what else gets you going architecturally and in terms of space making and city shaping. So if you've been channeling that through in a dedicated way through your work in industry, that's absolutely fine. It will not disadvantage you. We just want to get that flavor of your wider design or indeed artistic practice. You know, we embrace all forms of creativity. It might be that you've participated in the New Architecture Writers program and you've written a phenomenal reflective piece about a bit of contemporary design. Tell us about it. We want a rounded sense of you. I hope that that's been really clear over the course of this evening. This course and this institution has been shaped to support your ambitions. There are a couple of questions for our current students. What initially drew you to the LSA over other universities? Let's start with that one.
I think it was the idea of kind of what we'd be learning in regards to kind of taking control of our own education, especially the critical practice modules regarding manual and manifesto, really kind of deciding what kind of architect we want to be, and that kind of guidance and direction is what I wanted to learn in my master's course. That's what really attracted me.
Yeah, for me, I was looking at a lot of the like sort of more traditional master's courses, and like none of them were that exciting. Like I'm sure they're interesting and you would sort of learn a lot, but when I kind of looked at what the LSA was doing, especially in terms of practice and kind of this like quite radical way of teaching, it was something that was quite exciting to me, and it was sort of like a step into the unknown almost, so I was quite drawn to that.
I think mine's the same as both Shin and Adam, in that it was just something that was very atypical and different, and not a kind of continuation of a bachelor's, which I think you find at most master's courses. Yeah.
Brilliant. And then question for the second years. For those of you in second year, have you continued to work in practice alongside studying?
I have not. Shin, did you?
No, I have chosen not to because I want to experience just non-working life for one last time. So that's it, really.
Quite a few people do though. Normally 1 day a week, and normally up until Christmas. Yeah, but it's not part of the course. You don't have to.
Yes, but we find a number do, and practice are very happy to accommodate that. We're running out of time. There is a question from Brian Sir, quite a specific one, but I'll try and answer it now. And Brian, do please follow up with an email if you need to. You mentioned that you did your part 1 here in the UK. You did your year outside the UK, and therefore your employment referee is not an RIBA ARB chartered architect. Is it eligible for him to be your employment referee? Yes, is the answer. Do go ahead. Do ensure that you are eligible to study the part 2 here. But yes, that's absolutely fine. And you know, we welcome and embrace international experience in practice. We think that's tremendous. Any final questions from those on the call? Well, in that case, oh yeah, here we go. One more, Caitlin.
Hi, sorry if I'm too late, but I'll just try and sit quickly. I was just wondering if any of the students could talk about their experience with crits, with critique, and so I heard you mention the roundtable crit. Are there also like formal pin-ups, or are you critiquing each other's work? And have you had any guest critics come in, and just what your experience has been with them?
Yeah.
So I guess I can start. Yeah, so we don't actually use the word crit. It's kind of a thing that we tend to call them reviews in the school, because yeah, we're trying to change the kind of the ideas and the kind of understanding of what a crit is. So we typically call them reviews, and yeah, they're kind of different setups really. The more typical one that we have is a roundtable, which is a kind of less is kind of put forward as a less formal presentation of your work, and that is typically to your tutor group, your tutor group, your tutors, and then a number of external critics that will come in. Some who I believe may have shown interest and asked to come in through the LSA, others may have been invited in by your tutors specifically. But it's a much the school is currently continually working on it, and I'm sure Sam can speak to this just as much as we can. But it's it's something that's currently undertaking a lot of development, and the school is really trying to work on to really try and move it away from the typical often quite daunting experience of a crit, and something towards something that's focused much more on productivity, I'd say. Yeah.
That's right. We're very much trying to move away from the often not hugely productive kind of intensity of the crit, and to create space and time for conversation and exchange. We think that's got much more pedagogic integrity.
It's probably also worth just adding that really we draw very heavily on our practice network for people in that network to come and participate in those reviews, drawing on their expertise. And as the year goes on, particularly in second year, as projects become honed and subject matter becomes more refined, it's really a fascinating process to bring people in who have particular expertise that can support some of those projects in very specific ways. So yes, we tend to, and again, we're sort of moving away from perhaps other tutors in other schools, or accepting that lots of tutors teach in other places, but really try and lots of teachers practice, but really the emphasis is on inviting practitioners in to review that work, so that they are design reviews in a professional sense as much as an academic one also.
Good. Any very final questions before we let you go off and enjoy your evenings and get working on your applications? Okay. In that case, thank you very, very much indeed for coming. Hope this has been useful. If you've got any questions or concerns, just email us, admissions@the-lsa.org. We will get back to you within one working day. We will try over the weekend to be on hand to respond to any urgent questions ahead of the Sunday deadline. It'll probably be me responding to those. But we really, really look forward to your applications. We want to work with you. And so do get them in and meet that early bird deadline. And we hope to see you very, very soon. All right. Good night.
Good to see you. Bye.